Once upon a time, 5 young women, all dressed in their NYSC uniforms, were deployed to a vibrant African village named Oka. The village was a wonderland. The air was fragrant with the scent of ripe fruits, the trees swayed gracefully in the breeze, and the hills loomed majestically like ancient gods watching over the land. The villagers welcomed the corps members with wide smiles, presenting them with gifts of yam, plantains, and colorful cloth. The corps members felt like queens, embraced by the warmth of the community. "You are welcome here," the villagers said, their voices filled with sincerity. "But remember, our culture is sacred. Respect our ways, and you will live in peace." The king, a wise man with a beard as white as cotton, invited them to his palace. He sat on his throne, surrounded by elders, his voice resonating like thunder before a storm. "My daughters," he began, "this is a land of rules. Obey them, and you will be safe. But one thing you must never do. Never enter the forbidden forest. That place is not for humans. It is sacred." The corps members nodded, their faces serious, but as soon as they left the palace, they whispered among themselves. "Do you believe those stories about the forest?" "We," the leader of the group asked. Ada rolled her eyes dismissively. "It's just to scare us. Every village has tales like this." That night, they were shown their new home, a cozy mud house near the village square. The villagers treated them like royalty, bringing food to their doorstep and greeting them with respect. As the moon climbed high in the sky, the corps members gathered outside their house, their faces illuminated by the silver light. They could hear the distant sounds of laughter and singing from the villagers. "This place is beautiful," we said, looking around in awe. Yet, deep in her heart, the king's warning echoed, "The forbidden forest." What could be so dangerous about a forest? The night passed peacefully, but little did they know that their curiosity would soon lead them down a path from which they could never return. The moon hung round and bright, like a golden calabash, as the village square buzzed with excitement. People gathered to hear the night tales, and the corps members, dressed in their night wrappers, sat among the villagers, their faces glowing with curiosity. The air was warm, but the stories sent shivers down their spines, like cold water running down their backs. A little girl, no older than 10, stepped forward. Her name was Oin, and her voice was small yet strong. "Tonight," she began, "I will tell you about the forbidden forest." The crowd leaned in closer, captivated, including the corps members. Oin's eyes sparkled like stars as she spoke. "The forest is alive," she said. "It has eyes that see everything. If you go deep into it, you will find a tree bigger than a house. If you touch it, the tree will take you back to the entrance, but those who go too far never come back the same." The villagers nodded, murmuring in agreement, while the corps members exchanged glances, their minds spinning with curiosity. "That's not all," Oin continued. "Some say they've seen creatures, headless men, women with glowing eyes, and spirits who sing songs that make you forget your name." The villagers shuddered at her words, but we, the leader of the corps members, smiled. Her smile was small, like the first crack in an egg. "What nonsense," she whispered to her team. After the tale, the villagers clapped and began to leave, but the corps members stayed behind, their hearts racing. "That was just a story to scare us," we said, her voice firm. "We're educated. We should find out the truth ourselves." Ada frowned. "But what if it's real? The king warned us." We laughed softly, her voice like a songbird soothing a storm. "Think about it," she said. "If the forest is so dangerous, why hasn't anyone seen these creatures outside it? They're just trying to keep us away from something." The others hesitated, but Wee's words were like a spark in dry grass. One by one, they nodded. "Well, we'll go in the morning," we decided. "Just a quick look. No one will even know." The night felt longer than usual as they lay in bed, their minds filled with thoughts of the forest. The corps members didn't know it yet, but their footsteps were already echoing in a place they weren't meant to tread. As time passed, the corps members became an integral part of the village. They taught in the local school, supervised the king's farms, and lived peacefully among the people. The forbidden forest faded from their conversations, overshadowed by their daily lives. The villagers adored them, and the corps members enjoyed their stay. Days turned into months, and soon it was almost a year since they arrived, with just 1 week left before their service was over. One afternoon, we sat under the big tree near their quarters, lost in thought. The others were busy packing their belongings and preparing to leave. The beauty of the village and the friendships they had formed weighed heavily on her heart, but the allure of the forbidden forest lingered in the back of her mind, whispering promises of adventure and mystery. Would they dare to explore it before they left? If you've made it this far, I encourage you to like and subscribe to the channel to continue enjoying fascinating content like this. Your support is very important to us. But Wee's mind was elsewhere. It doesn't feel right, she said suddenly. The others looked at her, puzzled. What doesn't feel right? Ada asked, zipping up her trousers. Leaving here without seeing the forbidden forest, we replied, her voice low but firm. The other corps members exchanged uneasy glances. But we promised not to go there, Amaka, one of the corps members, reminded her. We smiled faintly. We've been here for a year. We've followed every rule and done everything right. Don't you want to see if the stories are true? Just for ourselves? No one has to know. The others hesitated, but Wee's words were tempting. Finally, they nodded reluctantly. Fine, Ada said. But how will we find the way? That evening, they called Oin, the little girl with sharp eyes and a quick tongue. She stood before them, clutching her doll, her face serious. Oin, we began gently, we need your help. The little girl frowned. Help with what? We want to know the way to the forest, we said, her voice soft and careful. Oin's eyes widened, and she shook her head quickly. No. You can't go there. It's dangerous. We won't go far, we assured her. We just want to look. It'll be our secret. The villagers will never know. As a gesture of goodwill, she handed Oin a small bracelet as a gift. Oin stared at the bracelet, then back at the corps members, her little heart wavering. Finally, she sighed. Okay, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. But you have to promise you'll come back before it's dark. We promise, we said, smiling. Oin described the path to the forest in detail. Her voice trembled with worry, and when she finished, she looked at them one last time. Please don't go too far, she begged. The next day, during the hottest part of the afternoon when most villagers were resting, 3 of the corps members slipped away. They laughed quietly as they walked, teasing the villagers in their minds. They've scared themselves with stories, we said, shaking her head. This is going to be nothing. As they entered the forest, it felt like stepping into another world. The air was cooler, and the trees were tall and thick, their leaves shimmering with strange colors. Flowers of every shade bloomed, and the ground sparkled as if it had been sprinkled with stars. This is beautiful, Amaka whispered, her eyes wide. But as they ventured deeper, the magic began to fade. The trees grew darker, their branches twisting like claws. The air became heavy, and the once sweet scent turned sour. Does anyone else feel strange? Ada asked, her voice shaky. We waved her hand dismissively. It's just your mind playing tricks. Let's keep going. They walked on, unaware that the forest was watching them, and with every step, they were walking straight into its trap. The forest grew quieter with each passing moment. Even the birds stopped singing, and the wind felt like it was holding its breath. The corps members moved slowly now, their laughter replaced by uneasy whispers. I don't like this, Amaka said, clutching her scarf tightly. We rolled her eyes, though her own heart was beating faster. We're just scaring ourselves, she muttered. But then, a sharp scream tore through the silence. It was Ada, pointing ahead, her hand trembling like a leaf in the wind. Look, she cried, her voice cracking. The others followed her gaze, and their blood ran cold. In the distance stood a figure, a man walking slowly, but something was terribly wrong. He had no head. His shoulders moved as if he were breathing, but his neck ended in nothingness. The corps members froze, their breaths caught in their throats. The headless man kept walking, stepping slowly and steadily as if he were searching for something or someone. Run! We shouted, her voice breaking the spell of fear. They turned to flee, but as they did, a tall black wall appeared out of nowhere, smooth and imposing, stretching as far as their eyes could see. Where did this come from? Amaka screamed, pounding on the wall. We're trapped! Ada cried, her knees buckling beneath her. Before they could gather their thoughts, strange creatures began to emerge from the shadows. Their eyes glowed red, their shapes twisting and shifting like smoke. Some looked like animals, others like humans, but none of them were natural. The corps members clung to each other, their fear spilling out in choked sobs. One of the women fell to the ground, her body shaking uncontrollably, while another stood frozen, unable to move or speak. "We shouldn't have come," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Her confidence was gone, replaced by sheer terror. The creatures circled them, their glowing eyes fixed on the intruders. The forest seemed alive, its trees leaning closer, its shadows stretching longer. For the first time, the Corps members understood the truth. This was no ordinary place. This was a world they were never meant to enter, and now it was too late to turn back. I hope you enjoyed this amazing trip. Subscribe and don't miss our next video. See you next time.